It's a bit ruthless to present this in 12 minutes, but I'm going to try. I'm going to have to read a little bit just to make sure I cut the chase, so apologies for that in advance. Okay, so I'm Anna Reimao. I'm a lecturer in Portuguese Studies. This is Rosalba Biasini, lecturer in Italian Studies, and our colleague Dr. Barbara Spadaro is lecturer in Italian Linguistics. We work in modern languages and cultures, which is part of history, languages and cultures. Barbara is not here, but she's happy for us to present on her behalf. Our project is called Language Stories in Liverpool, and it's how we got students to do a multilingual and multimedia activity while engaging with transnational research. Okay, so I'll tell you about the team, the project aims, what students did and their feedback, and we'll talk about also the challenges of this project, and maybe talk about how this maps onto curriculum 2021. Okay, so this is the team in one of the meetings that we had with students. I've already introduced everybody else except for Giuliano Sacomani, who's kind of partly one of the excuses that originated this project. So Giuliano Sacomani was the receiver of the Franklin Liverpool Fellowship Scheme, which allows for staff from the University of Liverpool, from our department, to travel to the University of Georgia Atlanta, and for staff there and postgraduates to travel here. So it's an exchange with staff and postgraduate students. So Giuliano came to the University of Liverpool. He's doing a PhD in newspapers of the migrant Italian communities in Argentina and Brazil, and he is Brazilian. And he's also, so he came to Liverpool to talk about that project, and he also is the chief editor of the bilingual magazine Falai of the Department of Languages at the University of Georgia. The magazine is bilingual in Portuguese and English. So he came to, we invited him to come and he had a series of activities in the week that he visited Liverpool, and we invited him to also come to our undergraduate students and not just postgraduates and academic staff, to talk about his research and to kind of model and give examples of what our modern language students can do with a degree in modern languages. Giuliano kindly invited us then to publish the results of our project, of our students, our students' work in a special issue of the Falai magazine, which is now currently in the make. I also want to talk a little bit about the research background of this project. So the Language Stories in Liverpool project is informed by the Transnationalizing Modern Languages, which is a project funded by the AHRC, particularly the Translating Cultures theme. And this project identified key issues that are needed to address the decline in modern languages uptake in the UK, in secondary education and further on in higher education. So some of the suggestions are for language education to challenge the association between language and nation, and also for language education to develop cultural literacy, which are two things that we have tried to do. So our project and the whole tries to also integrate research-connected teaching in language learning to raise awareness of the linguistic cultural diversity of the context of where students live and study. So we wanted very much to use what we had available in Liverpool and make students very aware of that diversity and how they can make the most of it. But we are language teachers, and we want them to do that while they are consolidating their linguistic skills. But as everybody else in the room, we're also very aware that we need to meet the requirements of curriculum 2021, so we wanted students to be able to acquire transferable skills when they did that. And over to you.
Thank you. So how did we prepare the students for this research activity? We informed them, in class, with emails and via Visor, that they were going to do something a little different from what they have done up to that point. We included students of Portuguese, students of Italian. We told them that in week 8 of semester 2, they were going to take part in a research activity about the mobility of languages and cultures in Liverpool, and that this would inform transform an output into a multilingual digital platform. So this is what they know, and they knew that in preparation, ahead of Kate, they had to form groups, go around and explore traces and signs of the target language, so Portuguese or Italian, in Liverpool. So they had to find for signs that would reproduce the linguistic and cultural elements of excuse me, Italian or Portuguese in their city. And this could be, as you can see from the examples, museums, galleries, library, people, buildings, as well as food and other aspects. So you have a list there. What did the students do? This was the preparation. So during that week, week 8, they had preliminary talk with Giuliano Sacomani on the Monday, where Giuliano, as you can see from the pictures, explained his research, what is researching in multilingualism and translating cultures, and he also introduced them into the ethnographic skills that he uses and then they were going to use. During the week, as we said, they carried out in groups independent research, they visited Liverpool, finding sites to explore, and then they started to produce their own outputs in writing what was supposed to be a post for, we will see, a digital platform, but to keep in mind that it would inform also the new magazine issue that we were going to produce. On the Friday, this is the second picture, we had a feedback session where we were present, as well as Barbara, to give, and Giuliano, not only to give them help with the language, but also, especially Giuliano, on how to produce a good editorial for these texts. Eventually this is the first output. So we picked Facebook because we all appreciate its duties, its help, and we created a page that you can follow called Language Stories in Liverpool, in Liverpool. And you can find it on Facebook, and yeah, it's there. We have some posts. So this is what is the first product of what the students did. So you can see that they had to go around taking pictures, recording, carried out interviews with people of Lusophone or Italian heritage that moved to Liverpool and changed the city. Not only people, eventually they had to meet with people, but they could find, for instance, a building, a restaurant, artifacts in the museums, and so on. It's quite interesting that they did find food as one of the elements for the mobilities of both people from either Italy or Lusophone countries. Yes, how did we assess this? So I will talk about the challenges in a minute, but one of it was that, of course, we plan ahead for the syllabus, assessment, the module specs in general. So we had to take this initiative and put it into what we were doing already. So for Italian, we used the oral exam. So the oral exam is already in place. We didn't have to change anything. The topic is very varied. For that year, we just told them, in the oral exam, you're going to talk about this experience, describe it, and analyze it. And for Portuguese?
Yeah, for Portuguese, they had a written assignment already established as part of the coursework, the summative coursework, and they had to write a 400-word text about how they got involved in the project. So the actual post, the text that were posted on Facebook were not assessed, but they had to reflect and write and submit a written reflection about the whole process. I gave them very clear guidelines because, in the same way, I wanted them to be able to articulate what the learning gains are, which is something that I've, from attending conferences in learning and teaching, I've realised that sometimes they are wonderful projects, but then at the end, students, even though they have done the work, they've acquired the skills, they are unable to articulate them. So it's important for me to include this. So they had to describe the activity, and explain why they chose what they chose, reflect on their contribution to the group work, including the development of soft or hard skills, and I use this language, reflect on the impact of the activity on their own language skills and motivation to learn Portuguese, and then describe the benefits and challenges or barriers involved in taking part. So this was great because then it meant that then we had lots of feedback. Oh, okay, there we are. That I collected initially in this word cloud. So from here you can see, well, this is in Portuguese, but I'll help you. Portuguese, skills, confidence, practice, different, project about language, learning, activity, culture, fear, which is very interesting, but immediately followed by I am able, and then task and different. So, these are kind of the key themes that they've mentioned. And just a few snippets of the things they mentioned that I want to highlight here. So, as a student of Portuguese, I feel that I'm advantaged to becoming a global citizen, which, really kind of matches one of the themes of Curriculum 2021. This project was an excellent way of coming out of my comfort zone. We faced challenges because not everybody had the answers to our questions. Therefore, we had to do research. And this kind of very much establishes where the students are coming from and, what we have to do to transpose and to get them to actually be active and learn actively and take initiative. I would say that the task was very beneficial and helped my colleagues and I to involve with Portuguese people outside of the classroom. As a result, I feel more confident and motivated to learn Portuguese. There's no doubt that this project makes me feel more confident because I discovered different aspects of the culture in my city, and this activity provided an important message about accepting different cultures in a society.
Okay, so very briefly to conclude, we want to talk about the challenges though, because in theory it's all very nice and it gave us a lot and to the students, but we did find some institutional barriers. For instance, for timetable reasons, it was very difficult to find a time when we could gather the students together from 3 different modules. Also, we said it before, this has to do with planning in advance. We had this researcher come in, very useful, but we really had to structure our the activity around what we already had in place, so assessment, for instance. Student engagement, because we find that if you don't assess them, perhaps they don't use their extra time, they don't go out of the classroom to do other things, but we generally find that they were engaged. Well, they were assessed at the end, but they did find it interesting. Then also embracing multilingualism. So we thought that this could be a learning process for all of our students. Anna talked about how to detach the idea of nation and language, but also how to make them engaged with a platform that was multilingual. So perhaps the risk is that they tend to study Portuguese only, Italian only, even when they are put in front of a platform like that. The idea is to overcome these challenges. We will continue to run this project. What we find that was interesting, though, to end on a positive note, is that this project ticked all the boxes for Curriculum 2021 with research-connected teaching, active learning, authentic assessment, authentic task that was assessed, but the task was authentic. Confidence, we've seen it in the feedback that Anna gathered. Digital fluency, as I mentioned, apart from Facebook, they also had to use via interviews, they had to use recording system, audio, they created videos, and so on. And I don't think they have to explain now this enhanced global citizenship awareness, but there we go. So thank you very much. Grazie.